Everybody, welcome. And today I want to show you this new class called the Confidence Code. And if you know anything about computer language, then you know that this C kind of means inside is the code. That's how you do computer code, is inside those brackets. So this is the Confidence Code, and that is what we're going to talk about today. And there's 7 steps, which I'm going to show you the 7 steps. We're only going to cover the first 5 of them, ideally today. And these 7 can be broken into like 15. There's 15 magic spells, so there's 15 C words. There's 15 cool things for you to know that will help you. And again, we are only going to cover maybe 8 of them today. All right, and so I'm going to do it with this little diagram here. You can see here that there is a bracket, there is a C, there is an arrow up, and there's a line. And I'm going to kind of put it in visual format, which might be helpful for you. Okay, and just before we get into this, it's probably important to know, confidence is something that we all need. I think that as we are becoming successful in any area, we can see that the people who are the most confident are the ones who win the biggest. The people who win the smallest have the least amount of confidence usually. And we are on that scale somewhere, right? How much confidence do you have in your path, right? In your potential? How much confidence do you have in your own actions, in the promises that you make? Do you have confidence that you can keep one of your promises? Very interesting, isn't it? Do you have confidence in your potential to receive everything or to be big or to be successful? Do you have confidence in some sort of universe or pure potentiality or divine law or consciousness that you can tap into? And that is the source of the things that you want and need. Do you have confidence in the path that you've set for yourself? And if the answer is yes to those things, that means that you have confidence to some degree. And what degree is it, right? Out of 10, how confident are you in the path that you have forward, right? How confident are you that you can fulfill on promises to clients, right? Everyone here, I'm sure you know that you can help clients, but do you feel, how much can you help them? And will you hurt them at all? And is your service worth money? If so, how much money? Is it worth medium ticket? Is it worth high ticket? Is it worth $100? What is it worth? And you need to be confident that the value of your service far exceeds whatever price that you're going to ask for it. That's how the market works. That's how business works. Is the value has to exceed the price. It's not an equal exchange, it's an exceeding exchange. So how confident are you in that? How confident are you that you can take action to build your business and you'll get results, right? Because usually if we don't take action, it's because of lacking some level of confidence. And I think if we flip confidence and ask what's the inverse, what's the opposite of confidence, I think we can call it fear. I think there's various types of fear. Fear of making a mistake, fear of taking action, fear of looking foolish, fear of being made fun of, fear of being small. And all underneath it all is that I will be unlovable, that I am not good enough, that I will discover the truth that I'm not good enough. Right? So there's an insecurity underneath the more explicit fears. The explicit fears are behind a failure to take action, I would say, right? But like underneath the fears are like a little insecurity of like, well, I feel unlovable and I feel not good enough. And my fear is that if this isn't verified though, but if I take action and I fail, then I verify my own fear that I will be unlovable and not enough, and not good enough. So that's a lot of times the reason why we fail to take action, because our self-concept of who we think we are and who we want to be, and our insecure sense of self are so just out of whack with each other. They're so separate. far apart from each other. That what we don't want to do, the last thing we want to do is take action, because taking action will then destroy the high sense of self that we have. We know we can't sustain that if we take action, and we might prove true, like neither one is true. The insecure self is not true, and the super inflated ego self is also not true. They're both equally not true. But in the state that we're in, a lot of times, if you're failing to take action right now, you need to hear this. This is all of us, right? When we're stuck in that state, we're believing both of them. And if we're stuck in the ego one, that means you're extremely stuck in the insecure one, because that's the one that's underneath it. If you're even considering the ego one and you're like, well, I know I'm not that great, but maybe I am, but maybe not. And what's happening is underneath there's a very insecure self that we're believing in, and we can't see them. There's a phrase within Buddhism that the middle way is the path between two extremes. And the middle way is like a razor's edge. It's like a narrow tightrope between two canyons. The middle way is a very narrow, precise path to walk. And that if you fall to either side, you're falling to one extreme or the other. But if you fall into one extreme, you fall into both extremes. If you veer off the middle way and you fall into one extreme, it means that you're falling into both extremes. That's the truth. And so in this case, it is true. The insecure self underneath and the super inflated ego that thinks that I'm really great self, if you're in one, you're in both. And because we're caught in both, you can't see the truth that neither one is true, right? And the reason why we fear action is that we think it's going to destroy the inflated one, and it's going to verify the 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 inferior one, the sort of insecure one. We think that the action will verify that. Part of our mind is very deep fear, thinks that we're going to verify the deep insecurity that we're not good enough and that therefore we're not lovable. Underneath, usually, any fears, we can find those two things. I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable. And as long as those are our own hypotheses and other people don't know about it, then we think, oh, I can just blend in society, not really a big problem. But action is the worst mistake that we can make then, because we're afraid to verify if that's true. And we're afraid to pop the bubble of the inflated one. Okay? And so underneath your fears is that, and underneath a failure to take action is fear. And so what I want to do is reverse this, but don't worry, it's not going to be this deep. This is the deepest part of this, I think. But we'll see how deep we go. But anyway, that's the reason why we need what I'm about to teach. Okay, the confidence code. Let's get into it. Hopefully we'll even meditate on some of these things. All right. So if you were to take this little diagram here, we got the C in the middle, and we got, I'm going to put stuff, all right? I'm going to put the number 1 right here. I'm going to put 2, 3, 4 right here. I'm going to put 5 right here, 6, and 7. So that's kind of what I'm doing right here, okay? And so, actually, this can probably come closer together. That's probably better. All right, so we got number 1, we got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay, so let's define what these are. These are going to be our 7 steps. So you can see that step 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5 are the most important, and so on. Okay. So the way that I'm teaching this is, number 1 is the desired result. We're going to define the desired result that we actually want. Number 2 is that there is a prerequisite. There is a prerequisite to learning about confidence and overcoming fear. And then 3 is there something I'm calling the core 4. So if I were to say what is the most important thing of everything, is the core 4. Step 3 is the most important one. And that's where we're going to spend the most time. is on the core four, okay? And then after the core four is the effect, right? So 2, 3, and 4, these ones are the most important. This is the main part of the confidence code, is step 2, step 3, step 4, and altogether there are 6 items there. There's one prerequisite, there's a core 4, and there's one effect. And so that's 6 primary items that we're going to focus on, okay? And then after we talk about the effect, we're going to talk about the actual result. The way to think about this is, right, like the prereq, the effect, and the core 4. So that kind of rhymes a little bit, right? And then the actual result is the thing that we actually really want, that is confidence, but it's not the thing that we think that we want right now. What we think we want is number 1, but what actually do the trick for us, what actually solves the problem, is number 5. But we can't get to number 5 until we've done the core 4 and so on. Okay, so 2, 3, and 4 together will give us number 5. Okay, so that's what we're going to focus on mainly in this video. I'm not going to cover the other stuff, but the other stuff, just as an overview, are the bonuses. So underneath, we can draw a line and say there's a foundation of bonuses that we can build upon. And the bonuses, I think there's a bunch of them. I think there's 6. I think there's 6 bonuses. It's a pretty extensive pack. It's a bundle. But they are bonuses in the sense that they are complementary. We're going to teach the main system first, which is steps 1 through 5. And then the additional steps just make it better. They just add little flavors and give you different angles and give you different ways of approaching it and ways to master it and overcome particular mistakes that we could make in the application of steps 1 through 5. So that's the bonuses, and the bonuses are also going to venture into action. So once we're using confidence, one thing that can help us with confidence are like interpersonal skills, learning to communicate well, for example, right? So a few of the bonus steps are about engaging with other people, connecting with them, communicating with them, anything related to interpersonal communication and connection, which is a huge part of confidence, actually. This is one thing that we can, even if we feel confident, we might then shy away from that middle point of like, now I have to go talk to people and use my skills and connect with them and utilize it. And so all the bonuses are going to kind of cover and remove all those obstacles and take care and give you some skills and some confidence in your interpersonal communication. Okay, so that's the bonuses, which will happen in a different video. And then the last one is advice. It's just a quick piece of advice, which will help to summarize this and give it a period on the end so we can move on and make it a complete system for us to use. Okay, so hopefully that is helpful as a basic introduction. And now let's try to get into some of these points. Okay, so I'm going to just define them and talk about them a little bit. So number 1 is the desired result, right? If you remember number 1 from this diagram is right here. This is the thing that we think that we want, okay? Is unstoppable conviction. It's like an unshakable conviction in the direction of your goals and mission that definitely contributes to accomplishing them, right? Like this is just my best version of a definition. In fact, I would actually change this. I would probably even change this word to unshakable because I used the word unstoppable in the title. But either way, it's an unshakable or unstoppable conviction. Is that what you think of when you think of confidence? Like, what do you want? If this were a live class, I'd ask you to type it into the chat. What do you think confidence is? When you talk about confidence as a thing that you're lacking, what is it that you want? What would you like to gain? What is that, if you were to summarize confidence in terms of one sentence or definition about it, what would that be? And you may want to pause this video and just write that down because we can piece it together over this, okay? And here is my version. So if you want to pause, you can go ahead. If not, let's go forward. But this is my best guess as to what people really want. What is the actual thing that we want? It's a conviction, isn't it? If we were like fully activated and alive, like electrified with a conviction, an unshakable conviction that feels like we're unstoppable in it. And the conviction, we have to remember that confidence as a thing that we really want is something that just puts us into action where we're engaging with the path that we need to engage with. Confidence isn't really something that you can have just separate from your goals or separate from action, right? Like, as a functional working definition, I don't think that you can define confidence that way. I think that the confidence that we all need is definitely one that puts us unshakably, unstoppably in the direction of our goals, alive with conviction, on track with our mission, and that we can say it definitely contributes to accomplishing these goals. Like, that is part of the definition for me, is that the confidence is definitely actually contributing. It's not just something that we have inside, but that doesn't translate to success. It's something that does translate to success and accomplishing our goals and mission and vision. Okay, so that is my best definition, and I'd love to hear yours somehow. So if you have access to me in communication mode, you are very allowed to tell me, what do you think confidence is? And you may want to just get your own working definition, because if you have a working definition, if you don't like this one, then you can piece it together with all the other stuff we're going to do. We can definitely get there, but I want you to know when it clicks. Okay? And if you were to add something to it, go for it. Okay, so that's number one, and that's the thing that we actually want. Okay, so now what's the prerequisite here? Prerequisite is clarity. So I believe that the prerequisite to confidence is clarity. We need to know what we actually want. We need to know the right path. We need to know the right mission. We need to know the right actions to take, or at least the general ideas of the action to take. I've heard Alex Hormozi use the term directionally correct. And that resonates with me because that is something that I have always done. I just want to be directionally correct. If I'm asking for directions in Mexico, where I used to live, or even now I'm in Morocco, but in Mexico, I could at least understand the language decently well, a little bit enough. And I also wandered a lot. I explored a lot more in Mexico. And um, I would ask for directions, and people would point and they would explain, but I couldn't understand a lot of what people said, but I at least need to know that I'm going in the right direction. So they would point me in a direction, and I pretty much would just like figure out how far to go in that direction, and then I would do it. And then along the way, I would bump into somebody else and then ask them the next step, right? And I either have to keep going on the previous step, or I need to change direction and go somewhere else. And even if they told me 3 or 4 or 5 steps, I wasn't able to hold that in my mind or to even understand it. All I could really do is make sure that I was direction correct, that I was going to take action in the next right step. And I feel like that's a lot of times when we're on our right track, it feels like that. It feels like we can only really comprehend or understand the very next step. And it's like we're in a fog. Have you ever driven a car while you're in a fog at night? And your headlights literally can only see like 20, 30 feet ahead of you, and everything else is just a blur. When we are really on our track, about to break ground, about to like have a giant breakthrough, that's a lot of times how it feels for us, is that we really can only comprehend one next step, and we need to make sure we're direction correct. Okay, so clarity will do that for us. You do not need to try to understand 3 or 4 or 5 steps ahead of time, but you definitely need to know the next step and anything else. There's other things that you should probably know, right? But the very next step is one of them, right? And you may want to know, you may want to have an overview. For some of us, it's very helpful to have an overview of the big picture. If you are a coach or whatever, like, getting coaching is really helpful. And a coach like myself, we can give you a map, right? If you're in the business coaching calls, there's a 6-step process that is phenomenal that we're going over right now. And that's a map. It's a very complete map. It tells you what to do first, next, steps 1 through 6 cover everything, right? And that's a map. And that is really helpful. And if you can get a map and then understand your next step, that's way better than just getting one step at a time. Like, you are allowed to understand as much as you wish to, okay? But in terms of confidence, make sure you at least know your very next step, but you may want to know the full map. Okay, so anyway, that's clarity. There's many things that you can know, and clarity is a really great step. It is a learning step. It is a contemplation step. It is a wisdom step. It is knowing. It is a prerequisite to action. So we need to do that first. If you want clarity, you can take a retreat, but you need to learn. So a combination of like learning, contemplation, meditation is a really good way to get clarity, right? Learning happens through listening to people who already have clarity, listening to people who know more than you, listening to people who've been where you want to go, right? Listening to people who know the path, who know the map, who know the action step, who know the obstacles. Listen to them, right? That will give you clarity. Then you contemplate it so that you can figure out how to apply it for you. And then meditation, whatever, is helpful for this if you wish. So that's how you get clarity. You can put boundaries around it through deciding, you know what, for the weekend, I'm not going to think about anything else. I'm just going to learn and study and meditate on and contemplate and go on walks in the woods so I can absorb and integrate this one thing. That will give you enormous clarity. Okay, our mind is usually so busy that we can't get clarity. Even when we have the right info, our mind is so busy that we can't see clearly. So you want to make sure your mind gets fully calm so that you can learn and integrate everything. And you need to be able to make that investment and learn to cut, retreat. The Tibetan word for retreat means to cut or to sever. So you cut away various negative influences in your life, and or just temporarily things that are neutral, or even things that are good, but they're just not the one thing. So you temporarily can cut away those things so you can just focus on one thing for a short time, like a day or a weekend or a half a day or an hour or a whole week or whatever the retreat is. Okay? And by doing that, you will be able to actually absorb the information and your mind will have clarity within it. Your mind will be able to see clearly. So that happens with a combination of boundaries, learning, contemplation, etc. Okay. So the next step is now we're going to get into the core 4. Okay? Remember the diagram above. Prerequisite was clarity. Now we're into the core 4. Okay, the first of the core 4 we can call care. So if I were to try to assess, like, how much confidence are you having? How much likelihood of success are you going to have, right? What is the likelihood that you will succeed in what you're doing? And one of the measurements that I would want to take is how much do you actually care about what you're doing? How much do you actually care about the path ahead, about taking the action, about helping the people, about bettering yourself, about reaching your goals, about becoming unstoppable, becoming unshakable, becoming who you want to be? How much do you care about all that stuff and all the other people involved that you want to help? How much do you care about them? How much do you care about helping them? Right? That level of care has a huge impact on how much we do and how much action we take, right? And you can call it confidence, but it's really just care. It's where there's a will, there's a way, right? Where there's a will, there's a way, right? That's what Viktor Frankl said, who was the one who was captured. His whole family was put in concentration camps. His whole family, they separated them all, and everyone else in his family died, but he stayed alive because he had a mission and he was connected to meaning in his life. And he realized that all the other inmates, we can call them victims of the concentration camp, when they lost, because their physical conditions were so poor, When they when they lost meaning in their life, they died. When they lost meaning in their life, they would stop caring, and they would start trading away their bread and soup and sausages and whatever else that was keeping them alive. They would start trading it away for cigarettes because they just wanted to enjoy the last few days or whatever. And then he would notice they would die, right? It wasn't the cigarettes that killed them. It was that they lost meaning. They stopped caring. But he kept it alive. And so he discovered in this time that he said, whoever has a strong enough why can overcome pretty much any how. Meaning the how isn't the obstacle, the why is the obstacle. If your why is big enough, the hows become either irrelevant or surmountable or doable or navigatable. You can figure out the hows. The hows start to shrink. If the why is huge, actually this core four can be broken up into like a why, what, how action. Like the simple way to translate all the core four is why, what, how action in that order. Okay? But giving them these C words, as I do, the first one's care, right? Why? The why becomes so big that the hows start to feel small and the what starts to feel like obvious and simple. You want the what. Like, what is the path? What should you be doing? What's the action? What's the map? What's the structure? What are the things to do? What are the things to not do? Right? What are the principles that I should live by? What are the non-negotiables that I should practice every day? Those what's, right? We need to know that, but like those become simple. Those start to feel simple. When the why is huge, those become simple and clear. Okay? And then the hows might be like small little obstacles, but they feel small because the why is so big. So if you don't care that much, it's important to reconnect with that care. A lot of times we do care, but we dull it out. We're so used to failing. We're so infuriated with feeling like a failure and a loser that we kind of dim the why. We dim that care. We sort of put it out. We're like, no, I can't have this burning desire anymore because I start to feel bad that I can't accomplish it. I start to feel like a loser. I feel like a failure. But so we sort of pretend to ourselves that we don't really want it that bad. And that's gaslighting, isn't it? It's self-sabotage. It's gaslighting ourselves. We're tricking ourselves into thinking, oh, you don't really care about this, so that we can feel better about ourselves in the moment. It's a coping mechanism, out of discouragement. It's a coping mechanism that we do out of discouragement. But what we need to have is encouragement, right? Care could sort of translate as encouragement and enthusiasm. It really would mean enthusiasm. One of the founder of the Buddhist tradition that I practice says in the beginning chapters of a bunch of his books, he says, we need to learn to encourage ourselves. Because if we can't encourage ourselves, how can we expect anybody else to encourage us? Right? We are our own student. We are our own pupil. We have to learn to work with our mind. We have to realize that discouragement is a natural tendency that we all deal with, and that we need to learn to notice it and recognize it as an obstacle. It's essentially lack of faith, right? Discouragement is a lack of faith. It's not a well-placed lack of faith. There's never really any benefit of a lack of faith. It's like not even a lack of faith. It's what they would call a non-faith. It's a strong opposite to faith. It's not just the absence of faith, it's a negative emotion that is the opposite of faith. That's what discouragement is. It's actually a negative emotion that is the direct opposite of faith. And faith is what opens our heart to everything. Faith is what makes miracles possible. Faith is what makes transformation, even on a small scale, possible. Faith is the key to everything, really. Faith is the lubricant for the mechanics of the universe, the wheels of the machine of the universe to turn and to produce results in our life. Faith is the lubricant that allows it all to work. Okay? And so we need to have faith in our potential, faith in divinity, faith in the path at hand, faith that we can do it, and all those things. And we can, if we actively practice that, we can say that we are encouraging ourselves. We're encouraging ourselves. That is a very important thing to do as a self-leader, as a person who is self-led. We must absolutely learn to encourage ourselves, okay? And if we want to be a leader of others, we need to become a functional leader of ourselves. We don't need to become a master. You don't need to be a master of self-leadership to lead others, but you need to be able to actually do it effectively. Like there is a minimal requirement that you can lead yourself to a degree where it's functional, right? And encouraging ourselves is the first step. The first step to any positive action is always faith. The first step to any positive action is always faith. It's always going to be encouragement, right? Courage. It's always going to be encouragement. It's a very beautiful, beautiful, beautiful emotion. Okay, so the one type of care is going to be like faith, encouraging ourselves, but then there's another type that has to do with other people, right? There's always going to be other people involved, and a lot of times it's easier to accomplish our mission when we really think about others. Sometimes there's stuff that it's hard for us to do it for ourselves, but it's easier to do it for others. And so you really want to get into that. Like, don't be afraid to utilize that. That's how mothers perform miracles, right? That's how men do it too. When it comes to like leading their team or whatever, like their students, like men and women both perform what you might call a miracle, or at least it's an active heroicism, being heroic, um, because of this, of just caring about somebody else outside of himself. Okay, so that level of care is also part of your why. I don't think it should be the whole thing, other than we need to have some faith-based reasons for why we need to do it for ourselves. We want to become better. We want to become different. We want to receive results. Like there's going to be personal reasons based on faith that are important for us. And if you're an empath who occasionally struggles with boundaries and losing yourself, then that first one might be more important to focus on, because that might be your missing one, is learning to find the faith-based reasons for yourself. But then adding to that, of course, love, compassion, care for others will help you. That's the juice. Like the real juice is there. That's going to give you the 10x, the 20x, the 5x increase. It's multiple times more powerful than the care for yourself. And so you want to learn to utilize that and get in touch with it. You can do reflections while you're walking in nature, meditation, reflection, mindful reflection. Where you're walking in nature, you're sitting by yourself, you're having your tea in the morning, and you're just reflecting. This is how you develop care, is by reflecting on the reasons. Reflect on the benefits and the reasons. It's so beautiful that I can accomplish this mission because it will do this and this and this for me. It's so beautiful that I can accomplish this mission for the sake of others because it will do this and this and this for them. And you just kind of ponder and muse on these reasons. That'd be so cool if I could do this because, boom, it would do this thing for me. And as you reflect like this, your faith starts to build and build and build and build. And it feels like powerful force. It feels like a light that's shining from within. Okay? So that is how you can develop care. And we will do a meditation, but just not in this video. Okay? And I should plug in my computer. Hold on a second. Okay, the computer is plugged in now. So number 2 is commitments. So as I told you before, this is like the what. This is the what. Now, this one in particular is something that I wish I could break it into like a couple. There's almost like 2 parts to what a commitment is. Okay? And part of a commitment is what we're not going to do. Or part of a commitment is like what we're not going to not do, right? It's something that we never won't do, or we never will do. Sometimes it's like the negative. It's like the not. So commitment, right? In my marriage, I might have a commitment not to speak with anger to my partner, right? If I have an angry thought, I need to work with that. But I can't allow it to become speech. I draw the line. So that's a commitment. It's more about what I'm not going to do. So if I were to give one of the things I wanted to do with this video, let's see if I can bring my little writing utensils in. I would under care, I would kind of write priorities. I know this is weird because this is I'm writing with a marker, but this is priorities. Clarity and care both kind of mean priorities. Okay. Sorry for the sloppiness. Maybe I should just write it out. And then, you know what I'll do? I'm just going to type it. Oh, but now you can see the whole thing. Oh, well. Okay. So commitments is going to be principles. Commitments is going to be principles. That's the one. Okay? So care is priorities. We need to think about our priorities. And then commitment is principles, like the principles that we're going to live by. What are the principles that you're going to live by? A lot of times principle is like it shows you what to do, but it also shows you what not to do. Okay? So I'm not going to speak out of anger or things like that. So you might want to find like what are the principles that you live by, and if they're good ones, then you only need a few. You only need like a few, like 3 strong principles in your life they're essentially they're commitments. They're things that you're going to live by, which essentially means they're a boundary that you're not going to go outside of. You're going to stay inside the boundary. Okay? So part of commitments, in my opinion, means that we sort of commit to the path, we commit to the what, right? We know that the steps ahead. I heard Leila Hermosi, who is Alex Hermosi's wife. She's also an amazing entrepreneur and teacher. She's phenomenal, actually. And she said when she was defining strategy, it was something about, you commit to certain actions and a path, but it has constraints within it. Any good strategy doesn't just tell you what to do, it tells you all the things what not to do. There's things that you're not going to do, and that's built into the strategy. For example, if you wanted to get more clients into your business, you'd have to pick one core strategy and be like, I'm going to follow this. And in order to follow one strategy well, there's a bunch of things that you have to simultaneously not do. It actually allows you to not do them, which is the cool part, right? So for example, if my process is posting things on Facebook in various forums, using Facebook groups, and then using Facebook Messenger to get people on a call. But before they get on a call, I make them watch a short little video that tells them about what I do, and then they schedule a call on my calendar. And then I have the call, and it's a one call close, and I blah, blah, blah. So there's there's a seamless art, there's a seamless science, there's a seamless process that I follow. But within that, there's permission to not do, YouTube ads, Pinterest posting, single sessions. Within one strategy, there's permission, and it's almost implicit that you're not going to do other things. Okay? That's what I'm talking about here when I say the what. You're committing to the what, which simultaneously needs to be a simple structure, and it needs to be an omission of other things. So that's what commitment is. Commitment in this context means you're committing to the what that you're going to do, which could be the principles that you're going to live by, or it could be the principles that you're going to follow in business. It's a particular strategy that is simple, it's a structure, and it may be pointing at what you're not going to do just as much as what you're going to do. Okay? So those are the commitments that I want to talk about here. That's the first type. And that's the first one to look at. For example, As a meditator, I can tell you that the main thing that will improve your meditation practice are the principles that you live by in your daily life, right? So if I live by the principle of do no harm, I'm going to make that commitment. I'm going to do no harm in my life. I'm not going to cause harm with my words, mind, or actions or body. And I'm going to do no harm and whatever, right? So by me living by that commitment, it requires a lot of mindfulness and awareness of what I'm doing. And that mindfulness and awareness build and build and build. And then I sit down to meditate, and my level of mindfulness and awareness is super, super high and strong and active. And boom, my meditation works like a charm. Whereas if I live a lifestyle that is not principle based, I can kind of do whatever I want. I'm never training my mind. And karmically, I can say I might be going on the wrong tracks. Like there's a karma component to this too. So what is karma? Karma is a relationship between action and effect, right? Let's do a little drawing. Let's do a little drawing. Okay, if I were to do a little drawing, I would move my face, and then I would get the pen, and I would say that there's probably some stepping stones, right? In your life, in your business, there are several steps, several stepping stones that you can take, and they're all going to lead to the result that you want, the star. Okay? And you're going to be down here, and you need to kind of figure out, what are these things that I can do? What are 3 logical steps that just like seem to be directionally, they're going to take me, right? And what can I do? And these are the things. And if you actually can like set yourself to them as a principle to live by, I'm never going to not do this. I'm never going to not make content. I'm never going to not make connections with people on Facebook Messenger just to get the conversation started. I'm never going to not hop on calls, right? I'm never going to offer anything but high ticket program, right? In order to be a high ticket coach, you need to not do low ticket. You can't be both, right? You can't be a low ticket coach and a high ticket coach. Why? Because they're both attractive to a completely different audience, and they make your brand status completely different. The brand status at a low ticket mark is going to appeal to people at a lower level of a mindset in terms of buying consciousness, right? And that's going to repel high ticket. And so you're going to have a very hard time doing high ticket. And so in order to execute a high ticket strategy effectively, you need to say no to low ticket. Okay, that's just an example. I found that to be true, but that is just an example, right? If you have a huge business with a team, you can do both. But if you're one person, it's very hard to do both. Okay, so that's just an example of how choosing a strategy implies that you have to say no to other ones. It's also important to recognize that we only have a limited capacity. Each one of us has a limited capacity. We are not unlimited. We are completely limited in our capacity. It can grow, but it is limited. It is limited. It is finite. Okay? And so we have to choose wisely. If there are 3 extremely important things to do and that your business will not grow if you don't do them, then why would you want to put your energy anywhere else? Putting full energy into 3 important things takes everything that you've got to do them well. Don't do other stuff. And so within this, there's like guidelines, there's like railings, it's like handrails. It's like, this is what not to do. Part of the what means that you have to be aware of what not to do. What is this? This is the priority, right? This is the care. This is the why, right? And then the commitment is kind of like the guidelines and the steps. You're like, I generally know what to do. I'm going to make great content in various forms on one main platform. I'm going to try to connect with people in Messenger daily without the intention to necessarily sell everybody, but just to make a connection. I'm going to do that daily, connection with people, right? Even just to connect for fun or for interest or for my good heart or whatever. And then 3 is I'm going to hop on calls, connection calls, or I send people to my calendar. What am I not going to do? I'm not going to focus on whatever, YouTube. I'm not going to focus on a website or whatever, right? You have, it's narrow so that you can pour everything you've got into it. Or maybe it's like, I'm not going to start a second business that's completely unrelated, like child daycare. I'm not going to be a coach and start up a child daycare business. Maybe that's one thing I'm just not going to do, right? And I'm not going to give all my time to my elderly relative and be their full-time caretaker. I'm not going to do that, right? So like there's certain things that you're not going to do, there's certain things that you're going to do. And that's the step of the what. That's the commitment step. You need to commit to those things. And some of them are things that you're just not going to do. And some of them are things that you're going to do. And sort of it implies that there's daily action. Sometimes there's daily action or at least the weekly action, or at least every working day. There's certain actions. Every working day you should be making content. Every working day you should be using Facebook Messenger to connect to people. Every working day you should be attempting to hop on calls, which means using content and Messenger to like take connections that have already happened and get them all the way to your calendar into a call, right? That's just an example, right? Maybe one of these steps is like, I'm going to build a website funnel. I'm going to build a funnel, a presentation funnel, where I have a little video of myself where I show people what I do. And after they watch it, then they can book a call. And I'm going to build that. Maybe that's this step. Or maybe that's this step. Or maybe you don't do that yet. Maybe I'm not going to do that because that's too much to focus on. I'm just going to do the simple steps. But you need to know. You need to commit to it now, and you need to not do anything else. That is the core for commitment number 2. This is going to build you. You need a structure. You need a container to hold yourself. All the energy that you want to apply to your business, it is going to be spread in a million directions if you don't do this. Or it's going to sit and stagnate and not go anywhere, right? My teacher said that the two extremes are like swampy energy, which is not enough structure, or a dam, which is obstructed energy. It's like a dam. So obstruction is too much structure, and then swamp is no structure. We need the balance like a river. A river has the perfect balance of structure and space. It allows for creativity. It allows for flow. By having a simple structure with guidelines with riverbanks, and then a couple simple steps that get you going in the right direction, that is enough. Now you can pour your energy into those things, not let it go anywhere else, but you don't do nothing and you don't do too much. You do simple, like this, structured, simple, something like this. Okay? So that's what this is. And you may need the help of a coach or mentor or something to decide upon what are my actual priorities? What should I be focused on? What are the 3 most important things for me to do right now? And then once you know that, you should figure out what am I not going to do? And then you should figure out how can I stop asking questions and just take action. And that's where confidence comes in. But this is part of it. This is part of confidence. Okay? So that's the main thing about commitment that I wanted to share. There's another level of it, but that sort of comes into effect later. Okay, if this is going to work. Okay. So now core 4 number 3 is certainty. Certainty. Okay, so as you might guess, because I'm a weirdo, there are P words with everyone. So this one's pathway. Okay, certainty is the path. It is the emotional side of you now being on the path. So now that you've laid out the simple structure, you know the simple basic thing that you're going to do. Number 1, number 2, number 3, you know what you're not going to do. You know where you're going. Now you need to bring certainty into your path. So the how, the what, the why, what, and how, right? So certainty is the how step. It means, how should I do this first step? The answer is with certainty. How should I do the second step? The answer is with complete, utter certainty. How should I do the third step? With complete and utter certainty. That's how. Okay, so the certainty is the emotional how. How am I going to do it? The energetic side. Now that I know the structure, I need to fill in the structure. This is a beautiful lesson I learned from Buddhism. First, you create a basic outline that is like coloring an outline in a drawing coloring book. And then you need to fill it in with the energy. The energy fills it in. The emotion and energy that fills in the structure. You need to build the outline first. A lot of us don't trust ourselves and divinity and coaches and our potential enough to even create this. Some of you won't even commit to this because you don't trust it enough. And so you never get to experience the beauty of filling it in with certainty. Imagine pouring in your certain energy into everything that you do, into a couple of simple steps that are proven to lead to the results. If you made more content, would you get more clients? Yes. If you had more connection, if you connected with people in Facebook Messenger more, would you get more clients? Yes. If you had more calls with people, if you had more booking on your calendar and actual calls with people, would you get more clients? Yes. Those are three things that are definitely good steps. But maybe they're so simple that you can include them all in number one if you're good, and then number two can be something even different and better in number three, right? So like you get to choose what your steps are, but whatever they are, if you have a few of them, now you can actually pour in this energy of certainty, and this is where the results will come from. It's the how you do it. It's not the what to do. The what to do is what we already covered. That's the structure. The how to do it. The how. You have your why, now you need the how. How are you going to do it? The how is the energy side, it's the energy of certainty. If you do it with certainty, it's going to work. You could do the wrong thing, right? You could pick the complete wrong steps, but if you do it with certainty, I guarantee that it's going to work. I know this for myself, right? You could be completely business blind. You could have no business sense. You could have what do they call the opposite of a green thumb, where someone just, no matter what plant they touch, it dies. You could have that for business, where you just can't do anything right. You're the anti-technology person. You could wander into a diner locally, but if you do it with a strong why and with strong certainty, you will get clients at that diner, right? You could be applying for jobs and you could get clients if you do it with strong certainty with a strong why. You don't even need to pick the right steps here. Like my logical brain, of course, wants to help you with this part, and I want to tell you, yes, pick wisely. But even if you didn't, if you had strong certainty, certainty is the emotion that brings the results, and the why, that faith, both of them combined, that care for others and strong certainty in yourself, that's where results come from. Certainty is the primary sales emotion. It is the emotion of creation, I would say. Sales is the emotion of creation. It's the emotion that makes things happen the most. You can get something from nothing. Nothing is pregnant with something. The state of nothingness is always pregnant with somethingness. And certainty is how it gives birth. You must take action with certainty. It is the how. It's the how are you going to do it? The answer is with certainty. Okay, so that is number three, and that applies to like your path. Okay, it's like certainty of the path, I suppose. And then number four is courage. And if I were to, this one doesn't really get a P word, I guess. It's mostly the action step, but I guess you could call it practice. Whereas this one's the why, and this one's the what, and this one's the how. Okay? And so practice action. It's really action. What I wanted to say was action, but like, how do you take action? Like with courage, a lot of times we want to take action, and the only thing stopping is we just need enough courage to feel ready to fail. We need enough courage to try and get feedback. Now, in my opinion, in my mind, we each have a masculine and a feminine side. And a lot of times, if you're a very spiritual person, we spend a lot of time in our feminine side. Whether you're a man or a woman, I did this for myself when I was a monk for a while. We all spend time in our feminine side when we're on the spiritual path. It's just a thing. We're in our beingness. We're in our being state. We're receiving, and that's important for our growth. But as a leader and as a conscious entrepreneur, you cannot get results without action. It's impossible. So sometimes we just need like what that means is we need to build our masculine side. And the masculine side is built in a different way than the feminine side. The feminine side is built with a lot of reflection and wisdom and removing blockages and receiving and contemplation. All that stuff increases our wisdom, removes our blockages, and our feminine side becomes very pure and powerful and activated like that. Our masculine side is not built like that. Our masculine side is built with trial and feedback. By trying and getting feedback, that is again and again and again, our masculine side will grow. It is like a little boy that's just unafraid to play the game. Right? A little child who's not afraid to do things. When I was a kid, me and my friends, we would even like knock on people's doors and run away, right? We would do things like that. Like little boys are just not afraid to do that kind of stuff. We would play sports and fall and get hurt. We actually did a thing once, they call it ring and run, right? You ring and run away. We did the ring and don't run. So we would talk to them as a group, and we had a whole prank that we did. But like none of us were scared of this, right? Little boys are just not afraid of trying things, and little boys are small, but we grow, and we need to like start seeing our masculine side like this. It's okay that we're a little boy on the inside. Like our masculine side is like a little boy. It's okay. It's okay that it's not big and fully developed yet. It can't be. The feminine side develops first. This is an understanding that I have. I hope that you guys can get this too and just either take my word for it or think about it for yourself until you believe me. Because this is what I have found. The feminine side develops first for spiritual people, and the masculine side, having a pure, divine masculine side, always comes second, even for men. So don't think that you're special, that you're different just because if you're a woman watching this. It doesn't make you different or less developed. It just means that you did it in the right order. You did the feminine side first. And if you are a leader, it means that leaders manifest through enrolling other people into their vision. A leader doesn't just manifest things by themselves. A leader is someone who manifests things that are so big that you need other people to play along with you. Right? It could mean getting collaborators, it could mean getting clients, it could mean your vision could be your family goes on a picnic, right? If you can enroll other people into that vision, then you're a leader. And if it's a good vision, then you're a conscious leader. If it's a vision that's better than theirs for them, then you're a conscious leader, right? And so then it's your duty to enroll them in that vision. And that could mean people sign up with you or whatever. So you're a leader. It involves action. It involves other people. It's not something you can accomplish by yourself. So that means the feminine side is not sufficient. It is not enough. We need to develop our masculine side. And right now, our masculine side is not this giant divine masculine god like Hercules or Thor. We are not that developed yet, right? We are a small boy in our masculine side, a lot of us. And so it's okay. We need to love it and learn to see it like this and just be unafraid to trial, error, fall down, get hurt, get money, get your hands dirty, break things. Kids break things. When I was a kid, I used to take things apart. My dad would give me credit for being able to take screws and take things apart, like stuff that he had to use wrenches to put together. I could take apart with my fingers. And he thought that was cool for some reason, right? I would like make booby traps around the house for my family because little boys aren't afraid to try things and take action and be a mess and break stuff and just fail and get dirty and get muddy and things get broken. That is part of growing your masculine side. And in particular, when it comes to the action, we need to have the courage to get feedback, right? Feedback means like universal feedback. The universe will give you feedback on what you do. The universe will say yes or no. The universe will give you yeses or nos. It'll give you the answer that you want, or it'll give you answers that aren't quite what you want. And either way, that is all feedback. And so the courage that we need is to receive feedback. That's how the masculine side grows, is by taking action, getting feedback, taking more action, getting more feedback. You can incorporate that. That feedback will make you bigger and stronger. And with enough feedback, you can then make better decisions. Your clarity can improve. That it becomes a way that your feminine side and your masculine side can work together. Your feminine side can take some of that feedback and make better decisions and see better things and have a bigger, better vision. And your masculine side is the one that takes action on it. A lot of us think, I want to debunk a myth here. This is completely wrong how some people think. I make this mistake a lot too. So I'm going to tell you what I believe. A lot of us believe that the masculine and feminine sides are like swinging on a pendulum. And I know I've talked about this before, but I'm catching myself now. That is slightly incorrect to say that there's a pendulum and that we're oscillating between the two extremes and we come to the middle. That is actually not the most correct way to think about it. The better way to think is that you're building two stacks that are supportive of each other, and that the higher one goes, the higher the other one needs to go, right, in order to be equal to it. If you want to be balanced, which is the goal, it is not just am I feminine or am I masculine, it's how much. And if your feminine side is developed a lot, you need a strong masculine to support it, right? Our ability to hold space for ourselves depends upon having a masculine side. That masculine side is the one that is holding the container. The masculine side holds the container, right? Your masculine side will hold space for your feminine side. If you want to be able to think and contemplate and meditate and do inner work and do mantras, you need to be able to hold space. If you want to be able to learn from a video course and think about it for yourself, you need to be able to hold space for yourself. And if you can't hold space for yourself, how can you hold space for somebody else? Well, right? So what I'm saying is, don't just think of your masculine and feminine as these separate things that you swing back and forth between. Think of them as two stacks that you get to build that support each other and that you build together, and that they can both become stronger and stronger and stronger, right? As your masculine side grows, it might eventually catch up to your feminine side. But what that means is now you can get even more feminine and be safe in that and still be held. And then your masculine side grows even more. Does that make sense? So you want to build them both together. They're not opposites. There's something that you want to build together because they're so supportive of each other. Okay? So please don't be afraid to take action and get feedback. That is the way the masculine side grows. It is not the same as the feminine side. Okay, and so how to do this? My perspective is that we just need some basic courage, right? If the instruction or step of take action, go practice is not enough for us, then the next thing we need is courage. We just need to be a little bit more courageous. And again, Leila Hermosi has highlighted for me, I love this. She's like, courage means that you act despite fear. It doesn't mean that you act without fear. It means that you have to have fear in order to be courageous. You can't even be courageous if there's no fear, right? So she's not saying, and I think that advice is very much supportive of how to grow the masculine side. She has a very well-developed masculine side, actually, and also a $200 million per year business. So I think that speaks volumes to the fact that it's very helpful to have a masculine side and a feminine side both. If you're going to do anything big, you want to have both so you can hold space and think clearly. Okay? And Leila, just to jump on the back of that point, something her dad did for her when she was young is she didn't ask her and her brother or whatever, her family, when they were little kids, he didn't ask, hey, what are you going to try this? What are you going to do? What are your accomplishments? What are your wins? He would ask, what are you going to fail at this week? And they would have to come up with items that they would fail at. How do you fail at something on purpose? It's by getting a big goal and trying, right? And so she systematically would set big goals to fail. And then she would come back and report to him how well and how big she failed. And then she would get rewarded and celebrated for how she failed. That's exactly how to build your masculine side. That's exactly how to do it. And just to say, if you know her in particular, her feminine side is extremely active and she's making extremely wise business decisions and life decisions because she has a very active feminine side too. So, like I said, they're not extremes that you oscillate from. It's something that you get to build and have both that work together. That's the way we can think about it, okay? So taking action means that we either just take action and just do it right now, or that we need to get courage, which means we need to be willing to act even though our mind isn't perfect, right? If I never acted, if I had fear, I wouldn't have acted, I wouldn't have done the most important things in my whole life. I wouldn't have become a monk. I wouldn't have gotten married. I wouldn't have taught any meditation classes ever. I wouldn't have done anything important in my life. I wouldn't have gone to college, right? How could I have done anything important in my life if I never acted without fear? Like we're always going to have some fear. That's part of having big goals. That's part of having a big vision. That's part of life. Like we can't be afraid of fear, right? Don't be afraid of fear. Just think fear is trying to hijack our mission. Our mission should be so compelling. Our why, the reason why we're doing things, our path forward, our purpose is so compelling that like we're just drawn into it. And then think of fear as just it's trying to hijack. It's like we're on that train going towards our mission, and there's like a little, passenger that is gonna try to interrupt us, is gonna hop on board, it's gonna try to take over the train, but you don't have to let it. You just think, okay, it's gonna try. I see you, and I'm just gonna keep going forward anyway. And yes, there's ways to work with fear, but in this context, right now, the answer is go forward even though there's fear. Don't be afraid of the fear. Just go forward anyway. And that's part of how you're going to get feedback. And that's part of how your masculine side gets developed. And that's part of getting results and holding space and being a container for others also too. Right? If you're going to offer programs and be a leader for others, you need to be able to hold space for them. And that comes from your own strength of holding space for yourself. Okay, so those are the core four that I wanted to talk about. And the last piece here, I guess there's two more pieces. What the effect that's going to come from all the above, from the clarity, the care, the how, the what, like the commitment, what comes from this over time is our character. Our actual character will improve. We'll become a better person. We'll become a person who can get the results. We'll become a more developed, activated person. Our character is going to be the person that attracts others that are the right people for us. Our character is going to be the ones that gets the right collaborators. Our character is the one that's going to instill trust in others. Our character is the one that can actually follow through on our promises, right? And so that's what the effect of practicing all these things is, that we will develop a strong character. Like, think of character the way people would talk about it like years ago. Like it's a thing that we can develop in ourselves. It's being a better person. It's being a character. Having strong character. Okay, like ethical character. Being a reliable human. Okay, so that's the effect that we will get, and that is all the above, right? The character is the thing that holds space. The character is structured. The character is certain. The character has why and purpose, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so that will come naturally, and that will have the biggest effect on others too when they see that. Okay, and then the actual result, I talked before about what is the result that we think we want, and what is the actual result that is the most effective. What is the confidence that we actually want? That like underneath is like better than what we think we want now. And as a result of practicing everything, we will get, I'm calling it extremely strong conviction backed up by mountains of undeniable proof that you are who you say you are and you can do what you say you can do. Okay? It's conviction, but another word for that is competence. I think actually that's what I meant to write. Extremely strong competence. That is actually what we get, but that's an effect, right? I can't tell you right now, hey, go have more competence. We can't, right? We need all these things to have more competence. We need practice. We need certainty. We need to know the path and principles. We need to have a why. We need to have clarity. All these things are part. Over time, competence automatically will come. Competence will come, right? But what is competence? It's kind of like extremely strong conviction backed up by mountains of undeniable proof. It could be mountains or stacks or just like large amounts of proof or evidence that we are who we say we are and that we can do what we say we can do. That's what confidence is, isn't it? Confidence is like knowing who you are based on like positive things, but also knowing that you can do what you say you can do or what you think that you can do. It's like knowing I can do this. In fact, I'm unstoppable. If I were to do this, I would be unstoppable. That is confidence. And that is knowing who we are and then knowing that we can do what we say we can do. And we have evidence and proof for that. We have competence in that. That's really, if you had that, do you think that you could accomplish your mission? Like, would you have any confidence issues if you had competence that is backed up, like extremely strong competence, backed up by mountains or loads, stacks of undeniable proof and evidence that you are who you say you are and that you can do what you say you can do? If you had that, would you have a shred of confidence issue? No, you'd have zero confidence issues. You would just be in action and you'd be performing, you'd be in the process of getting results powerfully. There'd be no problems, right? So that's what we actually need. So that's why I say in the result, this is the actual result, okay? So by practicing all these, mainly these 6 things, right? By practicing clarity, care, commitment, certainty, and by developing character, and what was the other one? Action, right? By doing all these things, we get the result, which is extremely strong competence, backed up by mountains of undeniable proof and evidence that we are who we say we are, we can do what we say we're going to do. So that's what I wanted to cover today. There one more thing that I said I would get to that I'm just going to make sure I get to is the other type of commitment. I said there's 2 types of commitment. The second type comes after certainty. Okay? So after you have certainty, like you do, the certainty is the how. It's like doing the path that is set forward. When you have certainty of something that you know it's going to work, that you know you can do it, you know it's going to perform. If you put the energy in, the energy is going to come out, right? The inputs equal the outputs. If I do this with strong energy, I will get results at some point in the future. That is like a certain mindset, right? That's one example. A commitment would be like the decision side of it. So there's a belief side. Certainty is very much about believing. It's like certain high level beliefs that you can have. Whereas it's very helpful to combine a belief with a decision. So by saying like, I am going to do this, like not only is I know this is going to work, but I commit to this. I'm going to do this, right? You could think like, I'm certain that when I do this particular post, I'm going to make this content. I'm going to do it with strong certainty. I know, I believe, and I know that it's going to produce the desired result. Well, I'm going to get people trying to get in touch with me, or people booking calls, people trying to work with me. I know that. And then that's like the wisdom or the belief side of the certainty. You can add in a little bit of a commitment or a decision to that by thinking, I'm going to do this, right? So if you're meditating on these things, you can't take action in that moment, but you can make a decision. Decision is action. I'm going to do this. I'm going to make this content. So you have a belief that it's going to work, and then a decision that you're going to do it. That becomes a very potent combination when you have those 2 things. Okay, so that's the last piece I wanted to add in. I hope this is helpful for you. Please go practice it, and in the next video, we're going to finish covering the next steps.